Hello, my name is Bella and I'm a South East London based photographer. I also run a photography collective in Peckham called Red Rolled and Seen. I'm really excited today to talk to you about photography and to hopefully inspire you and present a kind of photography challenge for the theme of room that the wonderful guys at F.A.T Studio have presented us with for our community in South East London. And the challenge that I'd like to present to all of you today is a challenge that is about the idea of a room being part of yourself. So the room being a metaphor for yourself, and perhaps thinking about how the room reflects an interior or private part of you. So when I first heard about this project, I immediately thought about what's the nicest room in my flat, and that was the approach that I was going to take. But then when I thought about it a bit deeply, I thought, actually, which room is sort of the least obvious room in my flat that perhaps I connect with? And that's what I kind of had this idea of, your house, your flat being a representation of you, and then photographing in this challenge a space that represents an interior, let's say an unseen part of you, or not seen to many anyway. So I hope you are still with me on this idea. I'll give you an example of the approach that I'm going to take to this project, which might be helpful if you're thinking, what is she talking about? So I'll be sharing photos of my bathroom, which is probably the least obvious room in my flat to photograph, because it's the room in my flat that has the least kind of comforting external things, in terms of there's no pictures, there's no comfy bits. Actually, everything's slightly cold and porcelain. So because it's so kind of sparse, it really does force me to reflect on my inner self in an unexpected way, because I think it's probably the space, apart from the bedroom maybe, where I feel the most vulnerable, in terms of, if we think about the things in that room: toilet, love a good toilet. Weighing scales can be quite vulnerable for some. I don't really weigh myself very often, but sometimes I do, and that's a bit of a shock, or a delight sometimes. First thing in the morning, I see myself in that space. Last thing at night, and sitting in the bath as well is often a time of reflection for me, or the shower. It's always a time when I'm connecting with some inner part of myself, or a part of myself that I don't really want to think about. There's no distractions, and there's no comfort. It just is. So that's why I decided to choose the bathroom. So I hope that sharing my idea for my room project will hopefully get you to start thinking about how to approach your own room. So in order to just help you, perhaps I'll give you a few things to think about. So what room are you going to choose? So think about the room, think kind of out of the box slightly maybe, apart from the least obvious room. Are you going to photograph a part of the room, or are you going to photograph all of it? Are you going to photograph an object in the room, or are you going to photograph a whole scene in the room? Are there going to be people in your room, or is it going to be just objects or items in the room? Is it going to be you? Are you going to be with somebody else? That might be quite interesting. Or is it going to be a series of images in the room? That might be quite interesting too. I wouldn't overthink it. Maybe the best way to approach it is just to take loads of photos of that space, and then you can go back and edit it and curate it to find what you're happy with, or to find a story, which is always the best way to approach any kind of photography project. And you might just choose one photo, which is cool. So I hope that was helpful, and it'd be great if you could share your ideas in the comments below this video, and let's get a conversation started about ideas, interesting ideas for this photography challenge, about the room. Thank you very much for listening. Ciao.